How's it going, Vandals? I'm Johnny. Welcome back to Graphic Vandalism. Yup, it's new video time. This one is It Came from the 80s. It will be a fun trek into hallowed antiquity to the decade that will live forever, as we seem to be getting an unending supply of 80s nostalgia bait movies, comics, and every other form of media glorifying the 80s. I thought it would be a fun, cool idea to show you a few really rad books from the decade I spent the first 8 years of my life in. So buckle up, grab the flux capacitor, and let's just get into it. All right, first up is Someplace Strange, written by the wonderful Ann Nocenti, with blisteringly beautiful surreal art by the always magnificent John Bolton, published by Epic Comics. So yeah, I'm totally starting this one off with a fun one, as this book is an all-age romp. Well, let me qualify this a bit. It's an 80s all-age romp, akin to stuff like Neverending Story and Monster Squad, so there's that. But this book is still just magic, as it's a fun and at times dramatic journey into the imagination of three young people as they learn to face their fears. And trust me, there was a lot to fear during the Cold War, which is an idea this book really plays on, as well as the idea of having to act like an adult when you have to make a situation you caused right. This book really reminds me of the work of my hero, Farrell Dalrymple, and is just a cute, rad adventure for any age person to get lost in. Right on. Now, let's switch gears, as next up is Io, boldly written and violently drawn by James O'Barr and John Burgeon, originally published by Caliber Comics, but has been colored and reissued by Stompbox 13. And dang, this book is hardcore and punk rock as hell, as it's a sci-fi war story about the US versus the Russians on the moon Io. But where this book shines is that it never glorifies either side of the conflict. It's a dirty and dark thrill ride in the vein of Apocalypse Now, full of jaded and nihilistic soldiers only looking to survive by any means necessary. And it's just a total blast, and Obar's art is marvelous. As a person who is pretty much obsessed with The Crow, this short, chaotic war epic is a total must read, yo. Nice. Now, let's hop on over to the warped and somewhat disturbing Ed the Happy Clown, mischievously written and drawn by the one and only Chester Brown, published by Drawn and Quarterly. And just wow, this book is really in a class of its own, as it bridges the gap between the classic surreal 60s indie comics by Crumb and Spain with what indie comics were to become in the near future, while at the same time being an incredible and at times revolting satire of the Reagan era, as it pulls no punches lambasting homophobia and the treatment of women, and it does all of this while staying one of the most hysterically funny comics I have ever read. In its own way, Ed the Happy Clown is a beautiful and disturbing time capsule of its time, and is something anyone and everyone who thinks the 80s were so cool should totally read, yo. Okay then, how about now we take a peek at one of the most underrated and truly amazing lost gems of the 1980s I have ever found or laid my eyes on. Okay, next up is Fashion in Action, gloriously written and drawn by John K. Snyder III, originally published by Eclipse Comics, but has been collected and reissued by Bedside Press. And seriously, finding this beautiful oddity is one of the best finds of my comic reading life. I just ran across it at an LCS and was captivated by its raw force and stylized art. The best way I can describe this one is just imagine Modesty Blaze mixed with Buckaroo Banzai, and you really get an idea of what to expect from this book. Also, I really do just love our main lead, Frances Knight. She is just so cool and badass. Also, her nemesis, Roxanne, is just so psychotic and wild fun. This book just had the rotten luck of being way ahead of its time and totally reads like something Vault, Aftershock, or Black Mask would run today. This book is so good. I really hope I can get some more people into it, as this is must-read stuff, yo. Right on. And last but surely not least, let's look at some true comic book history with Shatter, written by Michael Sains and Peter Gillis, with comics' first 100% digital art by Michael Sands, originally published by First Comic and has been collected and reissued by many other labels since. And yes, you heard me right. This is the first comic ever that was drawn on a computer. And even after saying that, the art in this book is so good. Way better than I ever expected when I first imagined what 80s computer art looked like. But aside from the art novelty of the book, the story is awesome. It's just so much fun and reminds me of movies like Trancers, Cherry 2000, with a touch of Repo Man sprinkled on top. As a person who lived through them, I have always loved the way the 80s made the future look, and this comic is a beautiful and perfect representation of that idea. And in my opinion, this is a book that really should be on any comic fan shelf. It's near perfection. It's just so much fun, yo. Well, Vandals, there you have it. It came from the 80s, and I really hope you enjoyed it. All these books are so good. Please let me know what are some of your favorite odd 80s comics are in the comments down below because I love recommendations. But for now, until next time, I'm Johnny. This is Graphic Vandalism, and don't stop reading.